I won't let a thief wear the clothes I paid for. Freeze for all I care. My father didn't just say the words. He ripped the winter coat right off my back and threw it out into the snowstorm. Behind him, my sister Isabella covered a smirk with a silk handkerchief. We both knew she was the one who stole the emerald necklace to pay her gambling debts, not me. But in my family, the truth doesn't matter as much as the reputation. So I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I stepped out into the freezing night in just a thin sweater, leaving them behind for good. 7 years later, at 29 years old, I am the operations manager of the Royal Onyx, one of the most exclusive boutique hotels in Chicago. I am the ghost in the machine. I fix disasters before the guests even know they happened. I know which senator prefers lilac-scented pillows and exactly how to remove red wine stains from a $10,000 rug without leaving a trace. My life is disciplined. It is quiet. It is secure. My bank account has a comma in it, and my apartment has heat that I pay for myself. But while I was building a fortress, my family was slowly drowning in the very luxury they tried to protect. You see, there is a specific sociology to toxic families. They need a scapegoat to function. I was the drain they poured all their anxiety and failures into. When they kicked me out, they thought they were solving their problem. But they forgot one crucial law of nature. When you remove the scapegoat, the golden child gets hungry. Without me there to blame for the missing money or the broken heirlooms, Isabella turned her appetite on our parents. Richard and Catherine spent the last 7 years feeding a monster they created. They covered her gambling debts. They paid for her failed business ventures. They financed a lifestyle they could no longer afford just to keep up appearances. And now, the bill has come due. I keep tabs on them. Call it a survival instinct. I know that Richard is exactly $150,000 in debt to the bank. The foreclosure notices started arriving 3 months ago. They are living in a house of cards that is already on fire, but they are still setting the table for dinner like nothing is wrong. And that brings us to the current crisis. Isabella managed to hook a whale. She is engaged to Julian Astor, the heir to a shipping fortune. The Astors are old money. They value lineage and legacy above everything else. For the wedding to proceed, and for my family to gain access to the Astor fortune that would save them from bankruptcy, Isabella needs a dowry. Specifically, the Astors have asked to see the family heirloom at the rehearsal dinner. The vintage emerald necklace. The one Isabella stole 7 years ago. The one my father accused me of taking. They are desperate. They have no money, no necklace, and a wedding that is their only financial lifeline. They are cornered animals. And cornered animals do not think clearly. They think they can rewrite history one last time. But they forgot that while they were playing pretend, I was keeping receipts. They do not know that the ghost they created is the one holding the keys to their cage. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the trap finally snapped shut, though my parents didn't know it yet. I was in my office at the hotel, reviewing the floral budget for a charity gala, when my private line rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. But in my line of work, you answer every call. "This is Elena," I said. "Miss Elena? My name is Arthur Vance. I am a senior fraud investigator for Sovereign Insurance." My pulse didn't jump. I didn't panic. I have spent 7 years training myself to be unshakable. "How can I help you, Mr. Vance?" "I am conducting a background verification on a claim filed by a Richard." He paused, shuffling papers. "Your father. He filed a police report yesterday claiming a burglary at his residence. Specifically, he claims a vintage emerald necklace, insured for $22,000, was stolen from a wall safe 3 days ago." I swiveled my chair around to look out the window at the Chicago skyline. The audacity was breathtaking. "Stolen 3 days ago?" I repeated, keeping my voice level. "Yes, ma'am. However, our system flagged a previous informal incident report attached to the policy from 7 years ago. It lists you as a person of interest regarding the same item. I am calling to verify if the item was ever recovered back then." And just like that, I saw the entire board. Richard and Catherine were desperate. They needed cash immediately to stop the foreclosure process, so they filed a fake insurance claim to get the $22,000 payout. But they also needed the physical necklace to show Isabella's future in-laws, the Astors, to prove they were still wealthy. They were trying to pull off a double dip. They wanted the insurance money for the debt, and they were frantically hoping they could bully or guilt me into returning the actual necklace for the wedding. They thought they could lie to a federal insurance investigator on Monday and lie to the Astors on Friday, and nobody would check the paperwork. It was reckless. It was stupid. It was a felony. "Mr. Vance," I said, leaning back in my leather chair, "I can confirm that the necklace was not stolen 3 days ago. In fact, I know exactly where it is." "You do?" His tone sharpened. "Miss Elena, if you are in possession of stolen property, I am not. I am in possession of property I legally purchased and redeemed. My father is attempting to commit insurance fraud. And if you are interested, I can prove it. There was a silence on the line. The heavy, expensive silence of a man realizing he just caught a big fish. I am listening, Vance said. Don't decline the claim yet. If you reject it now, he will just claim he made a mistake and withdraw it. You won't get a conviction. Instead, I want you to come to my office tomorrow morning. I am going to arrange a meeting with my father. I will get him to sign a document admitting the truth. And when he does, I will hand you a felony conviction on a silver platter. Why would you do that? Vance asked, his voice losing its professional edge for a second. He is your father. He ceased to be my father the night he threw me into a snowbank to protect his reputation. I am just balancing the books. I gave him the time and the address. I hung up the phone. My hands were perfectly steady. They wanted to play games with the truth. They were about to learn that the truth has teeth. The next morning, I drove to the First National Bank downtown. The air inside the vault was cool and smelled of dust and old paper. It was a smell I had grown to love. It smelled like safety. I signed the logbook, followed the guard to wall number 4, and inserted my key into box 402. Inside, there was a single black velvet box and a manila envelope. I opened the box. The vintage emerald necklace glittered under the harsh fluorescent lights. It was heavy, gold, and cold to the touch. This was the object that had destroyed my life. This was the reason I had walked out into a blizzard with nothing but the clothes on my back. But looking at it now, I didn't feel fear. I felt power. You might be wondering how a homeless 22-year-old girl managed to acquire a $22,000 heirloom. That brings me to the most common misconception about wealth. The appraisal value is not the street value. When Isabella stole this necklace 7 years ago, she didn't sell it to a collector. She was a 19-year-old gambling addict, desperate for quick cash. She took it to a shady pawn shop on the south side and took the first offer they gave her. $800. That was all my family's legacy was worth to her. $800 to pay off a bookie. After I was kicked out, I spent weeks tracking it down. I found the shop. I begged the owner not to sell it. He gave me 30 days. I was working double shifts at a diner and cleaning office buildings at night. I lived on peanut butter and stale bread. I walked to work to save bus fare. I saved every single penny until I had exactly $912 to cover the principal plus interest. I bought it back. But I didn't go home. This is where most people get it wrong. They ask, why didn't you just take the necklace to your parents 7 years ago? Why didn't you prove your innocence then? Because I knew them. If I had walked in there with the necklace, my father would have snatched it from my hands. He would have hugged Isabella and said, "Oh, thank goodness it was just a misunderstanding." He would have given it right back to her. And she would have sold it again, a week later. And I would still be the outsider. I would still be the one they treated like dirt. This brings me to the concept of the hunter's patience. Revenge is not a sprint. It is not about screaming or throwing a drink in someone's face. That is childish. Real revenge is an investment. It is an asset class. I realized that the necklace was worthless as a peace offering, but it was priceless as a kill switch. I held on to it. I paid the safety deposit box fees every year. I treated it like a dormant landmine, waiting for the day they would inevitably step exactly where I needed them to. I reached into the manila envelope and pulled out the rest of the receipts. First, the original pawn ticket. It was yellowed with age, but the signature at the bottom was written in crisp blue ink. Isabella's signature, dated 2 days before my father kicked me out. Second, the police report my father filed 7 years ago, naming me as the prime suspect. This proved he had lied to the authorities back then, and it would prove he was lying to the authorities now. I placed the documents in my leather portfolio. I snapped the velvet box shut. They wanted their heirloom back? Fine. I would give it to them. But they were going to pay for it with everything they had left. I checked my phone. It was time. I headed to the hotel conference room where the trap was set. My lawyer sent the email at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. The subject line was deliberately boring. Settlement offer regarding family property. But the content was the lifeline my parents were desperate for. It stated simply that her client, meaning me, was in possession of the disputed item and was willing to return it immediately to settle all outstanding family matters. We dangled the bait, and they bit down on it so hard I could almost feel the snap. You have to understand their mindset. Richard and Isabella are narcissists, but they are also cornered rats. They had the rehearsal dinner with the Astors tonight. If they didn't produce the heirloom, the wedding would likely be called off, and their access to the Astor fortune would vanish. But they had also already filed the police report and the insurance claim yesterday, stating the necklace was stolen. In their minds, this meeting was the perfect solution. They thought I was crawling back. They assumed I had seen the police report, got scared of being arrested, and wanted to hand over the necklace in exchange for forgiveness or maybe a few $1,000s. They thought they could bully me into silence, take the necklace to show the in-laws, and still collect the insurance money by claiming the police found it later or just keeping the fraud going. They agreed to meet at noon. I set the stage carefully. I reserved conference room B on the second floor of the hotel. It is a cold, intimidating room with floor-to-ceiling glass walls and a polished mahogany table that looks like a slab of black ice. I instructed the front desk to treat them like VIPs. I wanted them comfortable. I wanted them arrogant. At 11:55, I walked into the adjoining observation room. Mr. Vance, the insurance investigator, was already there. He was setting up a small recording device. "Are you sure they will sign it?" Vance asked, adjusting his glasses. "They have to," I said. "Greed is the only thing stronger than their pride." I left the door between the rooms cracked open just a fraction, enough for sound to travel, and went into the main conference room to wait. At noon exactly, the heavy glass doors swung open. Richard walked in first. He looked older than I remembered. His hair was thinner, his face ruddier, likely from the stress of hiding a bankruptcy, but the moment he saw me, that familiar sneer twisted his lips. He was wearing his best suit, but I noticed the cuffs were frayed. Isabella followed him. She looked every inch the future trophy wife. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, designer dress. But her eyes were darting around the room nervously. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking for the necklace. They sat down at the opposite end of the long table. They didn't say hello. They didn't ask how I had been for the last 7 years. Richard just placed his hands on the table, leaned forward, and tried to summon the ghost of the authority he used to wield over me. "I knew you would come back," Richard said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You stole this necklace 7 years ago, ran away like a coward, and now that the law is closing in, you think you can sell it back to us? You are disgusting." Isabella chimed in, her voice shrill. "Just give it to us, Elena. If you hand it over now, maybe Dad won't press charges. We might even let you come to the wedding." In the back row, I looked at them. They were so confident. They thought they were the sharks in the tank. They had no idea they were just the bait. I didn't flinch at the insults. 7 years ago, his words would have cut me open. Today, they were just noise. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded on the polished mahogany table, watching my father try to perform authority. He was like an actor who had forgotten his lines but was still trying to project to the back row. "Are you quite finished?" I asked. My voice was soft, devoid of any emotion. It echoed in the large, glass-walled room. Richard blinked at my calm, straightening his tie, the same nervous habit from my childhood. "Just give us the necklace, Elena. We're late for the rehearsal dinner." "I intend to," I said, sliding a paper from my portfolio. "After housekeeping." Isabella leaned over him. "What's that?" "An affidavit of truth. 7 years ago you accused me of theft. If I return this without proof, you could claim I'd been hiding stolen property. This document states the necklace was lost and voluntarily returned, clearing me of liability." Richard skimmed it, laughed, and signed without reading the fine print. "There. Now give me the box." I kept my hand on the velvet case. "Not yet. We signed," Isabella snapped. "That protected me," I replied calmly. "Now we discuss my fee." "Fee?" Richard exploded. "I redeemed the necklace, paid storage for 7 years, and suffered wrongful eviction and slander." I slid another document forward, thicker. "Quitclaim deed." His eyes widened. "That's the house. You owe the bank $150,000 and have no equity. Sign it over to me now in exchange for the heirloom." Richard leapt up, furious. "For a necklace? For your reputation." "And the wedding," I said, glancing at my watch. "The Astors expect to see it tonight." I slowly pulled the box toward my bag. "Fine," I said. "Explain why the dowry vanished." Isabella grabbed him, panicking. "Dad, we need it." Richard hesitated, calculating. Then he spat, signed the deed hard enough to rip the page, and hurled it at me. "Take the house." I checked the signature, filed it, and slid the box across. They opened it, emeralds blazing. Isabella sobbed in relief. Richard stood, hatred in his eyes. "You lost your family forever." I didn't move. I pressed the intercom. "Send him in." The door opened. A gray-suited man entered. "Arthur Vance. Sovereign Insurance," he said pleasantly. "Yesterday, you filed a theft claim for this necklace." Isabella froze. "But 3 minutes ago," Vance continued, "you signed an affidavit admitting it was merely lost 7 years ago." The realization crushed him. "You just confessed to filing a false police report," I said quietly. "And felony insurance fraud for $22,000. Richard whispered. "She set me up. I didn't make you lie yesterday or today. Vance tapped his tablet. Police are waiting outside. Isabella ripped the necklace off, sobbing until I added calmly, "You co-signed the burglary report." She went white. Richard collapsed into his chair. "You planned this," he muttered. "I waited for you to reveal yourself." I packed the deed and affidavit, stood, and headed for the door. "It's a cold night, Richard," I said over my shoulder. "Buy a coat." The fallout was swift. Isabella's engagement collapsed within a day. Richard and Catherine were evicted before the month ended. I sold the house 3 weeks later and walked away with nearly $80,000 in equity placed into my own trust. They now rent a cramped apartment, awaiting trial for insurance fraud. I don't visit. I built a warmer life without them. I am no longer the girl in the snow. I am the storm. If you believe the best revenge is living well and taking the house, drop a diamond emoji in the comments. And tell me, what secret are you waiting for the perfect moment to reveal?